Today's video is sponsored by
Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
Hi, welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today we're going to take this cheap thrift store guitar amp and turn it into a wall hanging guitar amp. A couple months ago, I was in Indiana at what's called Antique Alley, and while there's a thrift shop in town where I found this cheap guitar amp for 30 bucks. So today we're going to gut this, take it apart, and make this wall hanging guitar amp. Stick around to see how it's done. So for the outer case, we have this piece of rustic hickory that we're going to use. It is 7/8 of an inch thick, and we're going to cut it here on the table saw. All right, so we have the blade set to 45 degrees. I'm going to cut the first miter on each piece here. I know that I want the length of each of these pieces to be 12.5 inches, so I drew a line over here. And what we're going to do is use the fence. Now, you don't want to use the fence when you're cross-cutting on the table saw, so we're going to use a piece of scrap in here as well. And I am just going to eyeball the line up to the blade, and if I'm just a hair off, it's okay, as long as all the pieces are of equal length. So now we have an 1/8 inch piece of plywood that we're going to cut here on the table saw. This will be used as the face, and we're going to cut 11.25 by 11.25. So we're going to draw a circle where the speaker is going to go, and we're going to cut that out. So we have the circle drawn on here, and we're going to cut it out with the jigsaw, but first we need a hole to get started. Now we're going to go clean this up on the spindle sander. So now that we have our face cut and our grill cloth picked out, we're just going to glue it down. And then once the glue dries, we'll then cut it out. Making sure there's not a good side, bad side. Like my cameraman, he's got both. If you want to see a video on how to make these cement weight clamps, there will be a link down below and also on your screen. So now that the glue is dry, I'm just going to cut this out. So now we're going to cut a groove to allow our face, this is just a temporary piece, to allow our face to fit in there. And I've installed a flat bottom grind blade in there. Always makes me think of Fat Bottom Girls by Queen. But I have it 1/4 of an inch high and 1/4 of an inch away from the fence. And we're just going to run our pieces through here to cut a groove to hold the face. So as you can see, the piece doesn't fit in here yet, so we'll just nudge the fence over a bit. Look at that perfect fit. Before we assemble the outer frame here, this is the bottom piece, and what we're going to have is the electronics behind it and the knob sticking out below. So what I want to do is cut away to allow the electronics to kind of sit flush on here. That'll do. So the face that I have here is only 1/8 of an inch thick, which is not thick enough for me to put screws in. So what I'm going to do is just build up the perimeter with another piece of plywood to give me just a little bit more depth to screw this in. I wanted to cut the back off because it wasn't needed. It was actually getting in the way of the inside of the new frame. So now we got all our pieces cut and ready to assemble. I'm just going to throw some glue on the miters here. Use the band clamp to clamp it all together. Everything is looking good. Get my corners all nice and squared up. Tighten it up, and I'm going to flip it over because I care about what this side looks like more. So while that's drying, I'm trying to figure out how to connect the electronics here, and I think I'm going to just snip off a little piece here so I can get a screw in down here. As you may know, miter joints like this is not very strong, so we need to reinforce them with splines. So I have the spline jig. If you want to see how I made this, there'll be a link to that video here. So we're going to use this to cut grooves in the case here, and then we'll fill that with some mahogany splines. All right, so I got my fence set up to cut a nice thin little spline here on the bandsaw. So we have all our splines pre-cut here. Just gonna throw on some glue. And slip them in place. That glue will make the wood expand a little bit and fill that area. We'll just let that sit and dry for about an hour. We'll come back with a flush trim saw, chop them up. So now we're going to take a flush trim saw and trim up these splines here. So we are masking off the grill here because we're going to take this outside and give it a coat of spray lacquer. We don't want to get any on the grill. So we're going to put a little accent on the front of this amp. And so I got a piece of leather here that I'm going to glue on a very thin piece of wood. And we're going to use contact cement for this. This stuff smells awful, so you don't want to breathe it in. But we'll apply the contact cement on both pieces. So now it's had a little bit of time to get tacky. We're going to just throw it on here. This should be a pretty instant bond. So now that I had the leather glued on to a piece of wood, I'm going to cut it on the table saw to give me a nice clean edge. So now we are going to cut the width to fit here. So we're going to sneak up on the cut. Got it on the first try. All right, so I'm going to have the Make Something sticker down here in the corner, and I want to find a pleasing angle to have this come down. So I transferred my line to the back of the board here. I got this tapering jig that I'm going to use, and we're going to run it through the table saw. Everything looks good. Got the leather on the wood here. We're just gonna take some Titebond Quick and Thick and just glue it in place. Then we're gonna put my logo right on there just like that. And if you want a sticker, I do sell them on my website at makesomething.tv. So we're gonna place our electronics in here temporarily. I'm gonna mark out a little place to cut out a notch for the cable. Now we're going to just attach the electronics here with a couple of screws. There is a headphone jack in here that I'm not going to use. I was thinking about putting it on the side, but I know that I am never going to use headphones on this. Pulling off the knobs that came with it, and I got these stereo knobs on Amazon. Actually, we're gonna paint this. We're gonna paint this. I don't like the way it looks. So now that we got that guy painted, let's screw it back down. Oh, they barely reach. Before we hang this up and test it out, I'd like to thank my super supporters over on Patreon. Patreon supporters get the extended vlogs, plus they are eligible for the weekly giveaways. This week, we are giving away the puzzle that we made last week. So if you want to learn more about how to get extended vlogs and get into the weekly giveaways, check out my Patreon page. There'll be a link down below. If you think I've earned it, please share this video on Facebook and Twitter. It helps me out tremendously. And if you are not subscribed, you're gonna want to do so because we put out new project videos every Thursday. Eric, what are we shooting next week? You don't know. That's why you have to subscribe, because Eric doesn't know. It doesn't make any sense, but you need to subscribe. I have a second YouTube channel. It's called Make Something 2, and we do vlogs and talkies over there. Last week's video was all about how to grow your YouTube channel. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. All right, enough talking. Let's get this guy hung up and start rocking out. So this is going up against the wall. I want to put some bumpers here on the corner. So what this is going to do is allow some airflow through the back here. We're going to test out how hot this gets, and if it does get too hot, I'm going to end up drilling holes on the side for ventilation to go through. Please, hammer, don't hurt them. It's so punk. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you, it does sound like but I love amps. I've always loved amps. I've been buying them from pawn shops for years. I even love shitty guitars. Some of you may or may not know that a lot of these Zeppelin tracks were recorded with boutique amplifiers such as this. And so you can get a big sound out of a shitty amp. If you wanna learn how I made this guitar, there'll be a link down below. As always, be passionate and make something.